In the early 2000s, BlackBerry was one of the most powerful names in the world of mobile technology. The company built some of the most innovative devices in the mobile phone industry, and for a brief moment, they were the top dog in the space. But just as quickly as the company came to prominence, it was wiped out by the competition. Today, we'll be exploring the rise of BlackBerry, how it became the world's first mainstream smartphone, and how the iPhone ultimately led to its downfall. So, to understand BlackBerry, we need to start back in the mid 1980s. It was in 1984 that Mike Lazaridis and Douglas Fredgen founded Research in Motion, also known as RIM, in Waterloo, Ontario. Early RIM projects included developing modems, film editing systems, and wireless data technology. But the first real breakthrough for the business came in the 1990s when RIM created a system for two-way pagers. This was the inception of wireless messaging and would serve as the foundation of the future BlackBerry brand. And it was only later in 1999 that RIM launched the first BlackBerry device, known as the BlackBerry 850. The name BlackBerry was specifically chosen because the device's little black buttons resembled the surface of a BlackBerry fruit. The 850 itself was a two-way pager with a BlackBerry signature, QWERTY keyboard, and secure emailing capabilities. But the BlackBerry wasn't just a cool piece of hardware. What made it stand out was its built-in proprietary software and its own encrypted network infrastructure, making it more than just a fancy piece of hardware and actually positioning it as a secure messaging platform for users. In the business world, this was revolutionary. No other device until then was able to provide instant mobile email that was secure. And in 2000, RIM released the BlackBerry 957 alongside the new and faster BlackBerry 2 operating system. This would prove to be a landmark device in the lineup. Governments and Fortune 500 companies flocked to this device, and by the early 2000s, BlackBerry devices had spread across corporations, governments, and financial institutions where security is highly valued. Eventually in 2003, they launched the Quark series. These were business-focused smartphones with integrated voice calling. They featured a full-color display, mobile calling, web browsing, and email management. In August of 2005, the company launched BBM, or BlackBerry Messenger. This was the next step evolution from their encrypted emailing service. It was a fully secure, mobile-first, real-time chat service. BBM was way ahead of its time and featured a full range of multimedia features, supporting texting, group chats, pictures, voice notes, file transfer, and more. BBM basically served as a pre-touchscreen WhatsApp, iMessage, and Facebook Messenger, and it was fully exclusive to BlackBerry. And this was really the first glimpse that the market got of the smartphone future and where the industry was ultimately going to go. By the end of 2005, BlackBerry was growing very fast. The company had amassed 2.5 million subscribers, up over 100% from just 1 million the year before. And in 2009, BlackBerry owned 56% of the US smartphone market and had more than 80 million global subscribers. And the BlackBerry was more than just a phone, but it was a cultural symbol. It was carried by bankers, celebrities, and high-profile individuals, even the president. The terms BlackBerry addiction and Crackberry were often used to describe the addictive nature of the phone, with users compulsively checking emails and BBM from their device during day and night. A pretty interesting foreshadowing to modern smartphone addiction. So BlackBerry dominated the early 2000s. But it was in January of 2007 that Steve Jobs walked on stage and pulled an iPhone out of his pocket, and everything changed. That year, when Steve Jobs took the stage at Macworld and presented the iPhone, it was a departure of anything that the market had seen before. Apple's device removed the keyboard entirely and replaced it with a touchscreen. This was in stark contrast to the BlackBerry, which practically built its entire brand image and identity around the iconic keyboard. And at first, BlackBerry executives were unimpressed by the iPhone. They laughed at the idea of a smartphone without tactile keys. To them, it seemed like a toy. They were convinced that the iPhone did not have the security, the enterprise tools, and that businesses would never trust this toy phone. In February 2007, in an interview with Reuters, RIM CEO Jim Balsillie was dismissive of the new competitor, insisting that the iPhone was merely one more entrant into an already very busy space. But the thing is, the iPhone, as we all know, wasn't just another phone. While BlackBerry had built its product for the enterprise market, Apple targeted the much bigger everyday mass market. And suddenly, people didn't just want calling and messaging on their phone. They wanted a device with a camera, apps, music, photos, internet browsing, and most importantly of all, a sleek and seamless design. The iPhone shifted the mobile market from a practical business orientation to a consumer orientation. And in the process, they rewrote the expectations for what smartphones should look like and what they should be capable of. And suddenly, in a very short period, BlackBerry's grip on the market began to slip. By the end of 2007, when the iPhone was gobbling up market share, BlackBerry knew they needed to act fast. Their first big response was the BlackBerry Storm in 2008. It was a direct response to the release of the iPhone, a fully touchscreen device without a keyboard. But the execution was a disaster. The screen used a clickable mechanism that felt awkward and glitchy, the software was buggy, and the reviews were absolutely brutal, with most early adopters returning their device within weeks and buying an iPhone. While BlackBerry struggled to launch a touchscreen, Apple's App Store was exploding with new developers and apps. Initially launched in mid-2008 with just 500 apps, it grew to over 100,000 apps by late 2009. Meanwhile, BlackBerry's app ecosystem lagged far behind. Around this time, Google's Android also entered the scene, offering an open platform for dozens of manufacturers such as Samsung, HTC, and Motorola, bringing even more competition to the market. By 2010, BlackBerry still had 43% of the US market, but within just 3 years, that number plummeted to 6%. RAM tried one last reinvention with the launch of BlackBerry 10 operating system in 2013, but by then developers had mostly moved on to iOS and Android. The company's device sales collapsed, and its brand reputation never really recovered. So the company had to find a new way to survive. Today, the BlackBerry name still lives on, but not in the way most people remember. After losing the war for smartphone dominance, BlackBerry began pivoting away from hardware in the early 2010s. In 2016, BlackBerry announced that it would stop designing phones entirely. And while the devices did disappear, the company didn't vanish. Since then, BlackBerry has had a focus on software and cybersecurity, leaning into one of its enduring strengths, which was its secure communications. The BlackBerry Enterprise Server became the foundation for its new business model, positioning itself as a leader in enterprise security and automotive technology. A big shift from the days of pocket email devices. A surprising asset for BlackBerry turned out to be a company called QNX. This was a real-time operating system that RAM had quietly acquired back in 2010. QNX has become the backbone of BlackBerry's push into automotive software, now powering infotainment and security systems in over 250 million cars worldwide, supporting brands like BMW, Ford, Audi, Volkswagen, and many more. So the company's still around, it just doesn't operate in the mobile space anymore. And it was in 2022 that BlackBerry ended up shutting down support for its legacy operating systems, rendering old BlackBerry phones unable to function as basic calling or texting devices. This symbolically closed the final chapter of the company's hardware era. Nowadays, BlackBerry is remembered as a cautionary tale of what happens when innovation stalls in a fast-paced, ever-evolving technology market, with the iPhone rewriting the rules of the entire mobile and software industry, eventually transforming the smartphone from a business tool to a universal necessity, and in the process, leaving BlackBerry in the dust. If you enjoyed this video, you should watch my next video on why Apple ended up discontinuing the iPod. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.